In Romans chapter 6, verse 17, Paul introduces a concept that I think is amazing. He talks about the form of teaching that God gives to a person, and that person gets to give away to another person. The Greek word, although I'm not a scholar, is the Greek word tupos, which is where we get the derivative for our word typewriter. And it's the principle that if I push an S on this keyboard, that I'm going to get an S on the screen every single time. If I push an E, I can be absolutely certain that an E is going to come up on the screen. The same letter on the keyboard is going to reproduce itself on that screen. And so, as a man of faith, as a woman of faith, you get to be one who puts the tupos on the heart of somebody else. That's why Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. The story goes of a brilliant man who invented the game of chess. He took the game to a king, and the king says, I want that game. And the man said in his brilliance, well, all I want for the game is 1 grain of wheat. And he said, I want you to take that grain of wheat and put it on this square. And to buy this game from me, I want you to double that grain of wheat on this square and double it again on this square. So it would be 4, and here it would be 8, and here it would be 16, and here it would be 32. And here it would be 64. And he said, I want the amount of wheat doubled on every square. I want the amount of wheat on that square. Well, the king in his ignorance says, I grant you that amount of wheat. Well, the man knew the principle of tupos. And he knew that if 2 became 4 and 4 became 8 and 8 became 16, if you kept doubling it, this would be 2 to the 63rd power, which would be 17 trillion million grains of wheat, enough to cover India 30 feet deep. That's why Jesus' first order of business on this earth was to tupos himself on the life of Peter. That's why Paul's first order of business was to tupos himself on the life of John Mark and Epaphroditus, and then finally to Timothy. Our greatest job as a Christian is to be the tupos on the heart of somebody else. It was the great evangelist Billy Graham who pointed out that if he could reach 10,000 men every night for 365 nights a year, that it would take over 2,000 years to reach the world with the good news of the grace of Jesus. But can you believe that if you and your Timothy each took a Timothy, like next week, and spent 6 months loving that Timothy to Jesus till he was ready to love another man to Jesus, and then that Timothy took a Timothy, and you took another Timothy, those two men, in not 2,000 years, and not 1,000 years, and not 100 years, but in 16 years, and you can do the math, in those 16 years, those two Timothys could become over 8 billion people, not just reached with the good news of Jesus, but discipled for 6 months in the name of Jesus. That is the multiplication that the man who invented chess understood. That's what Paul understood. That's what Jesus understood. And so that's our job today, to reach the world in the next 16 years. Don't drop the baton.